All right, guys. What's up? What's up? What's up? We're about to get started here in the next 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I recommend you have something to write with and write down on what's going on, Kingdom ambassadors, Kingdom diplomats. Hope you guys are having a great summer. Less than 2 minutes before we get started. All right, all right, all right. Hope you guys are having a great, great summer. Hope your families are doing well. Hope you're not taking things for granted. I hope you're living life to the fullest. So, let's do a recap. But before I do a recap, I like to say welcome, welcome, welcome to all my newcomers. Please subscribe. Again, this channel, if you've been following me, or if you're new, you don't know this, but this channel is for educational purposes only. Simply put, there's three things that we all need to know. The right kind of knowledge. Knowledge is not just information. Knowledge means light. So the opposite of light is ignorance, right? So we should be on a quest of destroying a vehement, tenacious, dominating quest of destroying ignorance. Okay. Number two, understanding, right? Understanding, to stand under, right? An idea, right? The truth. Okay. And as you get to know the truth, there's a word called overstanding. That's more of a deeper rooted meaning. Okay. Because we learn in increments. And the third thing is wisdom. Okay. Don't look at the board and cheat, especially if you're new in here and you didn't see what I did 2 weeks ago. So the third one is wisdom. Okay. Wisdom. That means application. Okay. Application. Those are the three things that we all need to know. Okay. Now, so yeah, if obviously if you're already one of my subscribers, thank you for coming back. I'm here to serve you one of my gifts. One of my gifts is teaching and taking topics of significance. Now, hey, listen, there's a lot of things on Facebook, a lot of things on YouTube that have its place, but there's also a lot of junk on there, a lot of, how can I put this, wasting time, right? Nobody, you've never seen a movie on their deathbed, as far as somebody on there on their deathbed saying that, hey, I wish I wish I had watched more football. Now, listen, I like a good football game every once in a while, something to kind of decompress. I played sports, basketball, so on and so forth, like anything pretty much with a ball, right? I can figure out how to play, okay? But there's a lot of things on social media that have no value whatsoever. And a lot of this stuff okay, that I'm talking about is not only going to give you educational value, but it's going to give you something that I can guarantee you weren't taught, especially if I don't care what school you went to. I don't care what your IQ is, whatever. You didn't learn. You're not going to learn a lot of this stuff in school. I didn't learn this stuff in school. Matter of fact, if you came from a public school, it didn't really teach me anything. Now this is listen, beyond sixth grade, you just need to learn to read basic reading, writing, um, obviously some arithmetic, but other than that, a lot of that stuff is useless. You know, you should look this up. Nelson Rockefeller said this back in 1953 after Miss Jane Spaulding was fired after 49 days. He said that I'm just paraphrasing, basically that he had the most powerful position, more powerful than the president, the executive, the corporation of the United States, being the president, right, of the United States, and I think Secretary of State. We can look it up. But anyway, and all the small room of media was there, and guess what? It was like they were taking pictures, flash, 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 pop, pop, pop. It was like, remember those old cameras right there, huge truck lights, with the bulb on it. But anyway, so they basically asked him that question. It was like, whoa, wait a minute, you mean more powerful than the president's office? More powerful than this office? He was like, yeah. He said, if you give me America's youth, listen to the words, for 10 years, I will change this country and the world. Now, he was wrong. Here's where he was wrong at. It only took him 8 years. 8 years. So, what am I concluding? Well, you can conclude yourself, especially if you came through the public school system. Now, private school system, they still have a lot of lies in there and deceptions also, too. So, that's not where I'm here to go, but I'm sure that the jobs that you went into in the profession and career or whatever like that, you're not using most of that stuff, probably like 95, maybe as much as 98, and some of you maybe as much as 99%, that you're not using at all, like myself. Okay, now, so all right, 2 week recap. I'm not going to be in here that long, I promise you. All right, let's see. Now, hopefully you guys remember this from 2 weeks ago hopefully you took some notes. So, all right, so let's start with because we live in this fleshly body. If you remember, just a quick recap, man is a triune being, spirit, soul, body. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care where you're from. Um, even the people who don't want you to notice and have, let's say, nefarious motives and things that they want to do to get rid of you and your family and our families and everything, know about this stuff. So this is something you need to think about. Maybe you just haven't. Maybe you just didn't know what you were looking for, right? I didn't know that I was even studying, even in public school. I was studying government issued public courses about the unseen realm or the spiritual realm. I didn't even know that. Here, I prove it to you. So when you look in your physics book, if you took physics, your chemistry book, all that stuff, you can't see cells, right? You even talked about wind. You can't see wind. There's a lot of things that we can't see with the naked eye that apply to some of the stuff I went over 2 weeks ago and in previous recordings. Okay, if you don't know what they are, you should check into them and then look it up for yourself. This is also to not just educate you, but to empower you, to give you power, right? Because if you don't have the knowledge, like I didn't have the knowledge about a lot of this stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert in it, but I know enough to know where I'm going. Those 5 questions, remember those 5 questions? How many of you can put in the chat box what those 5 questions are? I'm not going to go over them right now, maybe a little bit later on, but if you remember on them, just type in the number 14 in the chat box, okay? Number 14. Remember those 5 important, vital questions that every human being needs to know in order to be successful in life, okay? On 3 different planes. 3 different jurisdictions. All right, now I'm gonna go fast, so you got to think fast. Okay, write fast also too. And I also recommend you to go ahead and go back over this recording at least 5 times. I would say 7 because researchers say that when you write stuff down, right, and you're listening to it, you're only going to retain probably about 15%. But each time you go, when you go back, you gain another 15%, 10 to 15, 10 to 15. Why? Because we're only operating on what? Can you guess what percentage of our mental capacity? 7 to 10%. Einstein was only at 11%. What a low standard. Exactly. Because of ignorance. You need to know the right kind of knowledge. All right. So let's talk about this democracy. Okay. I put constitutional republic. Now it has its place in there, but we are definitely not this. We're not a democracy. Okay. You need to know that what we're not. In order to know what you are, you need to know what you're not. You're not dumb. You're not stupid. You're not idiotic. Now, I'm talking about at the beginning of mankind, right? In Genesis 1:26 NIV, which was the mandate or the command, shall I say, that God gave all mankind. Okay, and I talked about that mankind named male plus female, which is entitled Adam. So we all came out of Adam. He's all of our forefathers. Whether you believe that or not doesn't matter. Just like if you were to be objective and to think, right? Think. We need to think more because Rockefeller said that years ago, decades ago. You can look this up too. I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of, what did he say? It wasn't thinkers. It was like nation of employees or something like that. Oh, okay. I'm paraphrasing. Non-thinkers, but look it up. I think it was John D. Rockefeller. So in other words, he don't want you to think. Why? So you can get robbed every day until you leave, until you give up the ghost in your physical body. All right, let me get down to this because I got somewhere I need to be at. Very important. Okay, now check this out. So a democracy, all right, democracy came from the Greeks. As I said before, this is just a recap, right? Look it up. What is a democracy? Essentially is where you have the citizens right here, right? The power structure is from the bottom up. Now that also is too from a constitutional republic. Now, even though these are the same, they're on the same, they're the same coin, but 2 different sides, right? So this right here is what we're actually not. Okay, so you need to look that up and why we're not. Essentially, when you look up the Greeks were saying basically this: we don't want to work. We just want to sit around and talk and theorize and tell people our theologies. They believed in gods, right? That's why our whole society is saturated, our whole world is saturated with the Greek philosophy. And I love Greek people, but this is just factual. The Greeks, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. You know, basically they said, if you don't look like us, you're our slave. Why? Who wanted to go out there in that hot sun and get that cotton and plant those vines and, harvest all that stuff? Who want to build these buildings, all that stuff that we got to think about? So we have to rationalize and justify and come up with some type of doctrine, ideology, and have somebody, well, of course, we're not going to do it on our own selves. So we're going to look at somebody else and say, oh, okay, maybe the opposite. Well, maybe if they just have brown eyes, okay, they're second class. Or maybe because their tint is a little bit more olive or darker and they are our slaves. So you can look it up yourself. That's their leadership philosophy. Okay. Now, so they're the same coin, but different sides. Okay. So this is what we really are right here, the physical, okay, right here, constitutional republic. We need to get back to learning what the Constitution is. If you don't know what your constitutional republic rights are, the U.S. codes, something about canon law, just basic stuff, okay? Well, I got this TV, I got to watch this football game and basketball game, and I don't have time for that. What, you have time to get robbed every day? I don't have time to get into it, but I can promise you that you are. Okay? There's a public self and there's a private self. Okay, there's two sides to everything. Okay, and what I'm talking about as far as government. Okay, you got counterfeit and then you got actual original government. Okay, you got counterfeit money and then you got real money, right? Um, anyway, so I'm not going to get into that. So, all right, so just look that up right there, Democratic Greeks and everything. Just take a few minutes for yourself to get educated with that. So, we're actually in the natural a constitutional republic. Our founding fathers actually did the best that they could with what the knowledge that they had, and they were thinking in the future. And basically, yes, they wanted the power structure to be within the citizen. Okay, now there's two types of meanings with a citizen. Now, city, I can't remember if it's the Greek or the Latin, but anyway, so city means basically city employee. Now, if you're a corporation, which the United States is a corporation, if you didn't know it was incorporated, that's who came up with the U.S. citizen. Or if you're a corporation, you have to have an executive. Okay, you have to be an executive. Who's the executive? Oh, we got three branches. Well, yeah, and under a corporation, yes, you got the executive, you got the judicial, and you got the legislative. But in a constitutional republic, you got the judicial and you got the legislative, and you also have the administrative. That's a whole nother topic in itself. All right, so the right kind of knowledge, right? Remember I said before, if you follow me on Facebook, and I don't know if I said this on IG and any of the other platforms, what if majority of the stuff you learn in your life was a lie, a deception, right? If I want to get something from you, most people aren't going to try to jack you for it, right? Gun or something like that. If the bigger the deception, the less we can wrap our mind around it, right? Because overall, most people are good, moral, kind people. I don't mean nice, because you can be kind, but you can also be strong internally, right? Spirit, soul, and body. Nice is just, that's another thing, another topic in itself. But you can be a kind person, but you can still be strong, okay? Now, so the power structures at the bottom. Now, lies with citizens voting, right? So we, the people, right, are supposed to elect. We are government. We're supposed to elect officials to be like chief representatives of us, okay? Now, the second thing is allow frequent change, and reform can face division, okay? Yes, it can, right? Because people can be. See, there's no such thing as poverty, okay? No such thing as poverty. Wherever you find poverty, you're going to find greed. That's what it talks about in the kingdom constitution called the Bible. Remember, I said before, the Bible is not about a religious book and a person named Jesus Christ. And that's not his first and last name. That's religious. You have to understand terms. See, you can get deceived. I've been deceived. You've been deceived. We've all been deceived. Why? Because of words, and words have meanings. But here's the thing. You and I came late to the party. What are you talking about, Tyreek? If you want to watch a movie, you and your family plan to watch a movie. Remember I made this example, talked about this example 2-3 weeks ago? And you got to work. They called you in 5 minutes before, and you had to go to work, right? As an employee, right? Employees, according to in England terms, means slave, right? Servant, slave. Okay, don't get mad. Hey, it's not my fault. Okay, most of my life I was taught how to do it, how to be a servant, a slave. Okay, some people are they make quite a bit of money being a slave. You know what I'm saying? Here's the thing. Well, slavery is already over. No, slavery. You got mental slavery, you got spiritual slavery, and you got physical slavery. I told you we exist on 3 planes, right? All 3 of those planes are interconnected, right? You can be free spiritually if you bowed your knee to the King Christ. If you even understand the whole purpose of his kingdom and why he put us here. I don't have time to get into that, but look at my previous talks. Okay. There's people right now listening to me that don't want you to know this. But hopefully through my teaching, I can reach down into their soul if they allow me to, and do a 180, right? And break down that callous heart in the Constitution. I'm talking about the Bible here. that just breaking down that this heart. 90% of the time when you see heart in the Bible, is talking about the mind, right? So you got spirit, right? Soul in the middle, and you got the body. Three, triune, right? Remember the Mercedes emblem? Okay. So we're a triune being. We're at three different levels. All of them must flow together. And if they're not flowing together, if you're free spiritually, right? If your name is written in the government annals of the kingdom of heaven in the unseen, because what do you think all these words come from? A lot of these words come from records and government and everything like that. It comes from the King, Christ, which means anointed king. So, all right. So that all has to flow into each other. All right. Now, here, so in a democracy, you got mob rules, right? The citizens have freedom, maybe that means liberty, and they have a voice, right? This is generally what we're taught, right? Misinformation, these are kind of the negatives of being in a democracy, right? And also in a constitutional republic, right? No privacy, surveillance. Every time you hit your phone, every website you go to, every email, every phone call is being recorded. I'm being recorded. Let me see if they get my good side. I mean, this is my good side too. Anyway, let me give them this pose. Anyway, so you gotta have fun, right? You can't live in fear, right? See, you know why people live in fear? Perfect love cast out fear, it says in First John, right? The governor, the Holy Spirit, part of the kingdom. Now, the governor in a constitutional republic or democracy is not the same function of a governor in Christ's kingdom, right? I don't have time to get into that, but you should look that up. I have it in previous talks, okay? So the reason why people fear is because it says perfect love or complete love casts out fear. So the opposite of fear is love, right? You meet somebody who was homeless, you meet other people out there, you talk to other people out there, people cannot feel loved at many times, and they can be in a house full of people. See, that's why we need to take time out and cut all the distractions that keep us poor, or should I say impoverished mentally and ignorant, so we can listen to each other. We're not here just to have a whole bunch of fun and yeehaw, yeehaw, and then live 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years and accomplish what we were supposed to accomplish. And unfortunately, most people, or should I say many people, I don't want to see most, but many people won't, okay? Because the indoctrination is so deep into their mind that they'll give up. Their spirit has been broken. That means subliminally, the things that we listen to and read and everything, you should qualify stuff. Qualify this right here. That's why I'm giving you sources. Go to the Kingdom Constitution. Look up the English words. Look up the Hebrew words. It was Greek and Hebrew in the Bible. Okay, and some of your definitions dealing with law in the Constitutional Republic. Look up the English, the Latin, the Hebrew. Okay, we need to know the original meaning of things, because that's how we are being taken advantage of. Taken advantage of by Satan. He's the third enemy. Okay, some of y'all need to hear this. Satan is a fallen angel, formerly known as Lucifer. These are the people who are following Lucifer. Look at the back of your dollar bill. You have a Pindar at the top, pyramid. Okay, you got the eye at the top. You got 13 families, right? And you got all these different bricks. I think it's like 200 bricks. Okay, these are people who are deceiving us, right? Okay, these are people that you lord over with music and so on and so forth. Now, where there, most of them are just puppets. That there's people behind the scene. You can go online, look this stuff up. Okay, the reason why I know a lot of this type of stuff is because I opened my eyes to, and the King, the true King, the Lord Jesus Christ, actually said, okay, there's a law of integrity. His law of integrity means holiness. Holiness means this. Whatever you want to know, I will show you. Nothing is yours unless you discover it. I discover it. So, in other words, you have to open your eyes. You have to give the King Christ permission to teach you. One thing I know is everything I know is not everything I need to know. I'm not going to say that again. Just go back and listen to what I just said. Okay? Now, So crime, violence, deception, rape, incest, gang, stealing, taxes. That sound familiar? Over there in Europe, United States, Canada, all around the world, mainly in the democratic countries, constitutional countries, right? Okay. We're trying to force other countries, continents to do the same thing, right? Okay. Handful of people. See, what I'm telling you, I'm empowering you. Hopefully, you're writing this down. Hopefully, you're taking this seriously. Okay. All right. Now, so this is all the natural stuff. And see, here I put right here, natural realm. Okay. So these are the governments. Whether you like it or not, you're under a government. Okay. Just being in existence, you're in somebody's government. You're in somebody's jurisdiction. Juris means right law. Notice I didn't say law. It says right law. You have to have the right law. Okay. The foundational word of righteousness is right. Righteousness basically means not a religious word. It's a law-based word. It's a legal term. It's a government term. It means to be rightly aligned with the original. Oh, you like that, don't you? Like rightly aligned with the King, Christ, his constitution. Okay? So that makes me a kingdom citizen, an ambassador. Now, some of you who understand the Constitution Republic, you can, oh, kingdom, oh, citizen. Okay, I get it. In the natural, yes, yeah. Under this right here, a citizen, city means city employee, zen means society. Okay. Also a person and also a resident. Okay. CPR, citizen, person, and resident. That's under the U.S. citizen, under the U.S. corporation, which is under the IMF, International Monetary Fund. And then you have above them Crown Inc., which is over in England. Physically speaking, a third of my blood comes from over in England. Okay? It's not my fault. All right? I have a third great grandfather on the maternal side who I look like in many ways, but he's white, right? If he stood right beside me, you probably would have been like, no way. But yes, hey, it's not my fault. I'm just glad I'm here. I was ordained to be here for a specific time with specific gifts to master one at a time, to attract the audience that I'm supposed to attract, and to empower people to free themselves, spirit, soul, body. 3 different ways, okay? Same thing with you also too. No one person. See, I don't call them the elite or anything like that. See, they're lame world order, whatever you want to call them. They were empowered individually too in Adam, because the mandate is in Genesis 1:26 NIV. King James Version is just a paraphrase. You got to be careful of that, because they control a lot of the publishing companies also too. And so if you start taking the scriptures out of context, you would get a distorted, messed up framework, right? You need the original frame, original idea. So I just gave you the original idea of Christ in Genesis 1:26 and why you were created, right? Okay, so the natural realm, we have very few real leaders. Keyword real leaders. Leadership is inside of you. We're all leaders trapped in followers, right? Okay, now poor character, right? We've seen that many times, right? Poor character. Oh, and by the way, if you want to hit somebody that you know that it doesn't appreciate you, and is stealing from you daily, you kids, grandkids, and everything like that, forget the news. Oh, I need to know what's going on with the news. No, you don't. Hey, or you can have it controlled. We got these little devices that I'm talking on called a little computer, right? A little phone. And that mechanism right there, you have more control over that. So you don't have to watch a whole bunch of news, right? Because most of it's negative. Did you know that affects your DNA, right? That subconsciously programs you and I to fail, to think that there's not enough, to think that there's poverty everywhere, to think that you're poor. Where you are right now in life and where I am right now in life, every single area is based upon what we've been programmed to believe. What if everything you believe, or let's say 95% of you, what you believe right now is not true, especially about yourself? I'm finding that out every single day. All right. So poor character, developing in a system of deception. Okay, so this is the natural standpoint. All right, because I want to start from the outside in. Now, if you notice, everything is made from the inside out. Right? We all came out of Adam. Adam came out of the King, Christ. Right? Right? Okay. Now, what did Adam do? He rebelled. He sinned. Sin is not is a religious word. It means rebellion, commit anarchy. You can't commit anarchy and rebellion in a religion. You cannot. It's out of what? In a government. Okay? So, now we're locked out. The Lord said what? What did the Lord? What does Lord mean? Owner, ruler, right? If you're renting, you have a landlord. A king owns all the territory. He owns all the natural resources. He owns all the spiritual realm. And he said, I'm a king. I sit on this throne, the center of the universe. Okay? I'm anointed king, Christ. And I want to have offspring to spring off from. Did you hear what I just said? Spring off from. And I'm going to create on the same plane a species called male plus female named mankind, which is entitled Adam, which means dark earth in the Hebrew. And I'm going to put them on the third rock from the sun. Okay. And I'm going to put them in this universe. By the way, 1,600,000 some change miles per hour, light is expanding. So there's thousands, and probably by now, since chronologically speaking, mankind is close to 7,000 years. Now they say the earth is probably millions upon millions upon millions of years old. I believe through Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, there's something that happened there, and we're going to have to find out later on. Those whose name is written in the government records of life. Okay, some people call it born again. Okay, remember, born again is only mentioned one time in the Gospels. Okay, and that was at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning by a synagogue pastor called Nicodemus. Okay, so that's not the gospel, and the cross is not the gospel. The cross is part, again, let me repeat, the cross is not the gospel. Calvary is not the gospel. I didn't say it, Christ said it. Okay, Genesis 1:26. Isaiah 9:6-7. This is all NIV. Matthew 3:2. Matthew 4:17. First public address to the public. Jesus Christ. Christ came into Jesus. Christ, the Spirit, came into Jesus. Came through the doorway. Came through the doorway. Called the womb. That's all we all got here. The Lord clothed us in flesh. Gave us a soul, mind, will, body, and emotions. I told you we're a triune being. Triune being. Triune being. No, that's not a gang sign or anything like that. I'm just trying to display three. Okay? Just pay attention to that. All right? And so, yeah. So, three. Now, let me just keep on because I got to get ready to go. So I don't get off tangent. All right. So this is the natural side right here. So this is what we want to study right here in the natural, constitutional republic, because you need to know who you are, why you're here, where you're going, where you're from, and what you can do. Those are the 5 questions that we all need to know. So in the natural. Now in the spiritual realm, as I said before, either you are a son of God, even if you are spiritually dead. How did we spiritually die before? Well, as I said before, Adam rebelled. He committed anarchy. Why? Because the king made some statements. His words, a spirit created all matter with his words. Okay? Words. You see, you need to know definitions, man. I'm telling you, you need to know definitions. So words, they are basically like an expressed. See, you don't know what I'm thinking. You don't know my ideas until I speak words. I'm not telling you my ideas. I'm just copying off of the king, right? Because I've read the Constitution over the last 20-something years, okay? And probably within the last 5 years, when I finally opened up my mind and got away from all the callousness and the distractions and everything, things really started to open up. And when I started studying basic concepts about kingdoms, because all natural kingdoms came from the idea of the king, Christ, okay, who is over the kingdom. Now remember, you got to separate it, spirit and then natural. You got the spiritual realm, you got the natural realm. The spiritual realm, natural realm, and you got the soulful realm. Soul means sucre, okay? Sucre, social, to be social, all right? So you're not supposed to stay in your place, your four walls, and not socialize. Now there's times when you need to get away, right? And spend time with the king, right? Now this is for people who don't know what spiritual death is. Okay, spiritual death, again, as I said before, Adam rebelled, and the Lord said, "Eat of this tree, and you're surely going to die." Right? Well, you weren't there. Well, you weren't there either. I'm just going based upon the Constitution. Right? Were you there when the original Constitution of Republic was there? Not 1776. Actually, it was established in 1607. Right? We had the colonies. Right? But even though Crown Inc., even though England was still, over us or whatever, that's when things kind of led up to 1776. See, I told you about them textbooks, boy. Anyway, so let's see where I'm at. So that's where spiritual death came from. He rebelled. So now, men, listen to me. If you have any children, when you sin, when you rebel against the king, whether you believe that or not, doesn't matter. Spiritual laws are tied into natural laws. We all know about natural laws, right? Okay. Now, when you sin, if I sin, I affect my seed, right? Before they were here. Okay. What am I talking about? My offspring, my children. Okay. And they're not really my children, right? They actually belong to the king. I didn't create them. They just passed through me, like water passing through a pipe, right? But they do have my likeness, okay? But you get what I'm trying to say, okay? I didn't create them. I was a helper in bringing them into pass, right? The pipe didn't create the water. The pipe came from, follow me now, the municipality, the local government that pumped the water to your house when you turn the water on, right? You see what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by offspring. And so it affects men, your children. Women, it also affects your children. Things are passed down spiritually, mentally, and physically. Okay, remember I said they're all interconnected, right? You can't say, "Oh, well, this is, I'm just doing this behind closed doors, just me by myself, or me and a handful of people. I'm not bothering anybody else." It affects all of us, and it affects your seed. Why? Because when that person is sitting and messing up and doing the things that they shouldn't do, because they're either spiritually dead or if they're spiritually alive, now you got the king living, you got the governor living on the inside of you. His nature's inside of you, like a hand in a glove, right? Like Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, he got his hand in his glove, right? And him living on the inside of you, he's supposed to direct you and guide you based upon the Constitution, because you're not this Constitution called the Bible, right? And you're supposed to be a king that's here on earth, making this, listen to me now, this natural realm look like the spiritual realm. Okay, I told you have to listen to this at least 5 times. I would say as much as 7 times, and take notes. Okay, so you have the spiritual realm and you got the natural realm. Okay, you need to know what I switch, because if you don't catch the switch, then you'll get lost like I used to, right? And even then, I still have to pay attention. Okay, now check this out. So that spiritual death got passed along to all of us. That's why Christ had to come into the spirit, come into Jesus, right? He had to have an agreement with a man, because we have dominion here in the natural realm, because this body gives us dominion, right? Look through the Constitution and you can run a cross-reference. How many times does it say dominion, control, manage, right? That's what we were put here for, as a colony. We're a colony of the kingdom of heaven. We're just in the natural realm, right? Okay, you got to be able to follow me. Study colonies, okay? I thought colonies were bad, kingdoms were bad. No, there are unrighteous kingdoms in the natural, yes, and there's an unrighteous kingdom also in the spiritual realm called the kingdom of darkness, which formerly known as Lucifer, currently known as Satan, rules over. Ignorance. That's what darkness means, ignorance. So he can only fool you based upon your lack of knowledge of this kingdom constitution. Oh my gosh, what a novel concept. Anyway, I gotta get ready to wrap this up. Okay, so so you got a king over a territory, right? So here's the natural part right here: birth, right? Marriage. Okay, that's how you typically become a king, right? So that's why you have to get born again. That's why you have to come back out of. That's how you have to get rid of that spiritual death that's inside of you. The spiritual death, the fruit of spiritual death is crime, is rape, is incest, is gangs, is stealing, is doing all kind of things in here, is deceiving people. They're spiritually dead. Now, you can be spiritually alive, but still think like the devil. Devil means Diablo. Diablo means penetration. A drop. Many of you had leaky roofs growing up, maybe back in the 60s, 70s, 80s before. You've been in it. You've had things leak, and you see that drop, that same drop. It drops, right, over and over on the rock. And eventually that big old rock is going to crack. So that's where you get those thoughts that come from, right? If you're spiritually alive, but you still think like the devil, in other words, you didn't conform or transform your mind to the kingdom constitution called the Bible, guess what? Then you're still thinking like the devil, right? Oh, if I die, will I be? Yeah, you'll be fine, because spiritually your name is written in the government records in Christ's kingdom, right? In his government records. This record's being kept. Yeah. Good or bad, there's records being kept. That's a whole other topic in itself, okay? So that's what we need to know right there, right? Now, in a natural, a king and queen stops deceasing if they vacated or to death, right? Citizens have rights. Now, in the spirit, a citizen, and under the U.S., under a democracy in a U.S. corporation, we're employees, we're slaves. But a citizen in God's kingdom, we have rights. There's something in the Bible, the Constitution, called King of Kings. You can't be a king unless you're at a different area, a different location than your father. Okay? Now, you got God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, right? Okay. So if you got the unseen realm, follow me now, and you got the kingdom of heaven, which is the center of the universe, an unseen realm, he's the king. If a person is up there, all the people that have gone before him before, they're no longer kings, right? Now I'm saying kings in the spiritual realm, because in the spiritual realm, there is no gender, okay? That's for ladies right there. So we're all kings, right? We spawned off of him. He's a king, we're a king. So kings have dominion. Kings are businessmen, meaning businesswomen that's inside there. Didn't woman come out of man? Okay, remember I said that's one of the laws. The laws of input and output. Everything that you see started from inside of something and came out. It got pulled out of something. Okay? Now, in closing, for his name's sake, his reputation, here's why you can succeed. Here's why you're supposed to succeed. Here's why you were predestined to win. I will guarantee you 100%. Listen to me, dear ones. This is how emphatic, and this is how it makes me mad thinking about this. Oh my gosh. All right. But it also makes me excited. You, yes, you were created, and you have a preordained outcome, the highest level that you can think of. You know, when I have money, money is the lowest level of a mechanism. You know, that's at the low, that's the bottom part. Okay, it's a low. It's just a tool, right? It doesn't even exist really. Okay, it's only what we perceive as money. Okay, but the highest level of each and every one of us, there is a predestined outcome that we're supposed to walk if we submit ourselves, right, to the king. Why? Because it's for his reputation. Right here. Namesake. It's not our namesake. Quick example. The best example I can give you of a reputation or namesake is a product and its manufacturer. The product does not get released into the public unless what? The image is on the product. It has to be tested. All the background stuff has to be done. By the time it hits the market, it's done. You see what I'm saying? But we don't see that. Okay? You were already preordained, predestined with 1, 2, 3. Some people have 4 or 5 gifts. Work on them one at a time, master one at a time, okay? Get knowledge about one at a time and serve it to the world for free. And guess what? People will pay you perceived currency and money will come and chase you down. You don't have to chase money. Matthew 6:33 in the Kingdom Constitution. Seek first the cross. No. Seek first faith. Seek first the blood. Seek first resurrection. Seek first money. Seek first people. Seek first myself. Seek first religion. No. Seek first the what? The kingdom. His laws. Did you hear what I just said? His laws. Learn the spiritual laws and the natural laws, and you will succeed. All right? So I'm done. This was just a recap. I didn't really get into what I'm going to get into. I'm going to move that to you next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Same bat time, same Kingdom Diplomat channel. Let's go. 7 p.m. EST, baby. And to all my people around the world, physically speaking, all my peoples in Africa, my cousins in Africa. I got peoples on the East Coast, West Coast, all different countries over there. I found out. All my peoples in Europe, all my peoples in Australia. Hey, humankind, they all my peoples, right? They my peeps. We are men and women, not citizens in the natural I'm talking about, not residents, not persons. I'm going to talk about that later on, okay? I just want to drop a little nugget so they can kind of see, what does he mean by that? So you come back for more, right? Okay, I can't tell you everything I know in the last 25 years, all right? Not just stuff I've learned, but people who taught me also too, all right? So you got to have a foundation, right? You can't build a brick building on a weak foundation, right? The foundation takes up 60, 70, 80%, right, of the cost of building a foundation to build the house on. Okay? So I'm done. You guys have a great week. Remember what I said. You gotta learn. You should go back, learn some of this constitutional stuff, because I guarantee you a lot of the things that are going on in your life because you have lack of knowledge of this right here, constitutional republic. You need to learn what the Constitution, at least the Bill of Rights, at least learn them, right? Start off there. That's the foundation for that. Because I can promise you a lot of stuff is being stolen from you, your kids, and your grandkids. Now, I'm 70 years young, I'm 80, so what? You still got time, you still got lungs in your breath. Did I say lungs in your breath? You still got breath in your lungs. You know what I'm saying? And you need to get started. Do something. Just get started. Don't try to figure everything out. Get started, what I said before. If you want to start with something, learn those 10 right there, or start with 3. Learn that by heart. Okay, start over here in the Bible. You want to start with something? Start in Genesis. Read the NIV, New International Version. Read that. That's contemporary. That's modern. That's expounds in there. Okay, I know of through somebody else. One of the people who actually did that. He was on a team of people who did the NIV. Did a great job, a magnificent job. Okay, says a guy who was he's passed on, but he was an ambassador of a country. Dr. Miles Monroe down in the Bahamas, and he actually knew that guy. Actually, that guy taught him, and then later on, because Miles learned this, he grew up under the kingdom, under the Bahamas, because Great Britain, they were colonies of Great Britain at one point, and he grew up, physically speaking, Dr. Miles Monroe, he grew up in a colony, so he understood this more than most people in the world. Okay, so I'm out of here. Y'all have a great night. I'll see y'all next week, and who knows, I may pop up here in the next 2 or 3 days. You know, I like doing some impromptus and stuff that just come on my heart to be able to share with you guys and to apply and empower you. Y'all take care.